I'm a 28-year-old guy, and I recently discovered that my 28-year-old wife had an affair with her former boss, a 35-year-old married guy with kids. We've been married for 5 years, and we were each other's first everything since we were high school sweethearts and even grew up as neighbors. Despite both coming from broken homes, we thought we created something different than what we saw growing up. However, now I'm questioning if I was naive this whole time. I work remotely, but my wife went back to in-person work. She works in a field with few women, often feeling like her job is a boys' club. Her affair partner, who was her supervisor at the time, was supposedly one of the good ones, looking out for her at work. Recently, she got promoted to a supervisor role herself, which came with new responsibilities, including occasional business trips. Last week, she went on her first trip from Wednesday through Friday. Before she left, we shared encouraging words. On Monday, she came home early, looking overwhelmed with a red mark on her cheek. She bruises easily due to her fair skin. When I asked what happened, she just wanted a hug. After hugging her, she confessed to an incident at work that completely shattered my world. She had closeness with her former supervisor during the business trip. I couldn't comprehend it at first. It felt like a cruel joke or a revelation happening to someone else. I stayed silent during her confession, shocked and unable to say a word. Cheating is a touchy subject for me, just like it is for many people. My own family fell apart because of my dad's affair. I caught him cheating and told my mom. Unfortunately, my relationship with my dad is now strained because he blames me for breaking up the family, and he's never forgiven me. My wife witnessed the pain cheating caused in my family, comforting me when we were teens. Now, she's the one who's hurt me by doing the same thing to us. Apparently, the man's wife discovered the affair and confronted both him and my wife at their workplace. It turned into a big scene with employees and customers around. The woman insulted my wife, calling her names and even slapped her. Other employees got involved, and the woman was escorted out of the building. Later, my wife called her older sister, who scolded her and insisted she confess to me about the affair. I still couldn't find the words, but my wife pleaded with me to say something. All I managed to ask was for her to explain what happened on the trip. She shared that on the second day, she went for drinks with other team leads for team bonding. As the night progressed, it ended up being just her and her former supervisor. He made inappropriate comments, kissed her, and things escalated to closeness. I couldn't handle more details, so I stood up, telling her to stop. When she reached for my hand, I moved away, asking her not to touch me. She broke down, apologizing and begging for forgiveness, claiming it was a huge mistake fueled by drinks. Despite her repeated declarations of love, I told her she needed to leave and call her sister to pick her up. She stood up from the couch, crying even more, and tried to hug me, but I moved away again. She pleaded with me not to end things, promising to quit her job and give me full access to her phone, suggesting we do counseling. I couldn't hold it together. I told her that if she wasn't leaving the house, then I would. Without stopping to pack, I went straight for the door. She grabbed my arm, seemingly trying to stop me, and kept begging, saying this can't be the end after everything we've been through. Despite everything, leaving her behind while she was crying tore me apart. It's because I love her, more than I ever thought possible to love someone else. But she broke me, tossing away our entire life and future. I ended up at my mom's house, where I'm staying now. Somehow, I kept my composure during the drive, but when I arrived, I just cried. I don't think my mom has ever seen me cry as a teen or an adult. The only person who's ever seen me cry is my wife. I told my mom what happened because I didn't know how to keep it from her, showing up like that. She was heartbroken. She and my wife always got along, and my mom treated her like a daughter. That was their relationship. She didn't pass judgment, but said I could stay as long as needed and tried to offer some words of comfort. Since I left, my wife has been puff up my phone with calls and texts, but I haven't responded. The texts have mostly been begging me to come home, talk with her, asking where I am, and pleading not to give up on us. I feel so broken. I thought I knew what this pain was like, but experiencing it is different. I never thought my wife would do something like this. I always believed cheating meant the end of a relationship, but now I'm considering giving our relationship another chance, going to counseling together to salvage it. I keep thinking about our history, how much I love her, how we always felt like matching puzzle pieces, and how she was there when I thought I had no one. I don't know what to do or how to proceed. I'm at a loss. Update. This week has been incredibly painful. I feel like a helpless child again, witnessing my world crumble without my wife, who has always been my best friend and support. I was certain I didn't know the whole story, so yesterday I decided to reach out to the other betrayed spouse. I needed to hear her perspective for clarity, as she wouldn't have any reason to lie or withhold information. I found her Facebook account and messaged her on Messenger. She responded in less than 10 minutes and suggested a video call right away. I immediately agreed. Without saying a word, one look told me she was going through a similar hell. She mentioned that shortly after being escorted out of the workplace last Monday, she tried to contact me but couldn't find my details. One of the last things she said to my wife was a threat to tell me. As she said this, all I could think about was how my wife rushed home that day, and her sister told her that I needed to hear about the affair from her. I asked her if she knew more about what happened during the team lead trip, or if it was just a one-night stand and how she found out. What she told me confirmed my fears. The affair dates back to before the trip, with documented proof of intense emotional texts. All of this was shared with me through screen share, and it was tough to keep it together. She told me that back in January, she noticed her husband acting withdrawn and disinterested toward her. There were times she saw him texting my wife, which he brushed off as work-related. The day before the trip, she went to the job to drop something off her significant other had forgotten and found him in his office with my wife standing close together, joking and smiling. The whole atmosphere between them felt flirty. When they noticed her, they parted, and my wife's face looked panicked while her husband went over it all together. She felt certain something was going on, but didn't address it, wanting undeniable proof her husband couldn't escape from. After the trip, her significant other was more distant and dismissive. That night, she waited until he fell asleep and checked his phone, finding bosom texts between him and my wife. Before the trip, it started as emotional cheating, with the affair partner stating he couldn't focus at work whenever my wife was around. In these texts, it was clear the affair partner was the pursuer and aggressor toward my wife, but that doesn't really make a difference because she never shut down his advances. Some pre-trip texts involved the affair partner bashing his wife and going off about repeated collapses. It was just plain disgusting how he talked about her to my wife. He kept mentioning how maybe he needed a woman like my wife. There were texts from last Thursday night, with the affair partner inviting my wife to join the team for drinks, and texts the affair partner sent to my wife the following morning, revealing that they had closeness. At this point, there were no more replies from my wife after Thursday night. I didn't think it was possible for me to hurt any worse, but here I am. The other betrayed spouse said it took everything to stay calm, not wanting to wake her twin sleeping in the other room. She didn't wake her husband up or confront him immediately. She was done with him in her heart, feeling he had crossed a line he couldn't come back from. She was angrier than ever during their marriage, set on humiliating him like he had humiliated her. She faked her smiles, acted like everything was fine, and waited until Monday to expose him at work in front of peers, underlings, and customers. This confrontation had been brewing for a while. It was only a coincidence that my wife was at work that day. When the other betrayed spouse saw my wife with the affair partner and another employee, she decided to target my wife too. My wife tried unsuccessfully to get her to quiet down. The other betrayed spouse then said her husband showed no signs of remorse, only anger at her public outburst. I learned from her that the affair partner was fired the following day. After the confrontation, she also kicked him out of the house, saying one of the hardest things in her life was having to explain all this to her twins. I had an idea of what she meant because I saw my own mom have to do the same thing after my dad. She mentioned this whole ordeal revealed who her husband truly was, and despite her husband pursuing my wife, she believed my wife still had a role in the affair. As a woman, she expressed having no sympathy or respect for my wife. I assured her I didn't fault her for feeling that way, and she had every right to hold her perspective. Surprisingly, she apologized to me for her husband's involvement in the affair. I was momentarily speechless, and then apologized for my wife's part. She mentioned we were now part of a club we never wanted to be in, one our significant others forced us into. She inquired about my wife and me. I honestly admitted I didn't know what I was going to do, but clarified that I wasn't currently staying with my wife. We exchanged good wishes, and before ending the call, we shared numbers in case we wanted to talk again. Every raw emotion was heightened during our conversation. I opened up to my mom about what I learned, and she refrained from expressing judgment. However, I sensed her disappointment in my wife. Part of me feels a strange satisfaction that her partner is losing everything, his job and family, and perhaps he's suffering. Yet, I'm not proud of that feeling, as a wife is losing her husband, and kids are facing immense pain. I also harbor anger toward my wife for betraying us, breaking our vows, and jeopardizing my health. We had closeness after her return from the trip, and the post-trip texts suggest no protection was used. I realize I should reconnect with my wife regarding the information from other betrayed spouses and demand a timeline. However, I feel even more lost than when I made the original post. It feels like I'm drowning. I suspected this might be the case, that in a moment where she could have disclosed the whole truth to salvage anything, she still chose to lie to you. I'm sorry. Update. I reached out to my wife, breaking the no-contact rule after finding out about her affair with a coworker. There have been comments and messages that are hard to see, but I believe they're necessary and come from a good place. It's been a week since the discovery, and I've been trying to process everything after talking with the other betrayed spouse. Sleep has been elusive, knowing my wife, my friend since childhood, had an affair. Stepping outside, I feel like an empty shell, thinking people may secretly be laughing at me. Has anyone else felt this way? I decided to break no contact to request a timeline. The plan was to go unannounced on Sunday, giving her another chance to be truthful. Some mentioned the affair partner might be at our home. It was painful to consider that she could be defiling the home we shared for most of our adult lives, but after everything, it wasn't far-fetched. I texted the other betrayed spouse for a description of the affair partner's car and explained why I needed it. After receiving the info, I drove back and looked for the affair partner's car, but it wasn't around. I went into the house to find my wayward wife alone on the couch. She was stunned to see me, with red, puffy eyes, like she'd been crying. I hated seeing her this way and had an urge to comfort her, but I recalled how we got here in the first place. It was confusing, almost not acting to help her. My wayward wife called my name with relief and moved toward me, but I asked her to stop. She did, then said she'd been worried about me and thanked me for coming back home. I asked if the affair partner had been in the house. She said no, but I searched the house, and she followed after a while, promising that he was never here. I found nothing suggesting the affair partner had been there. I asked if she had any contact with him. She admitted he left a voicemail, but she didn't call back and blocked his number, providing proof. We sat at the dining room table to talk, and at this point, I tried not to get lost in emotion. I told her I would like her to answer my questions. She agreed and said she's glad I'm here, and we're talking again. I asked if she had quit, and she hadn't yet. But on the same day, the affair partner was fired. She was suspended for a week pending an investigation, and tomorrow she'll learn the outcome. She said the affair partner's firing was the sole reason she hadn't quit as she offered. I asked her to tell me about the affair. She said she already did, but I told her we both know there's more to the story, and now I'm giving her another chance to be honest. If I discover any lies, there would be no going back. She was quiet for a few moments, and then she nodded, revealing the extent of the affair, matching what the other betrayed spouse showed. She showed me the affair started emotionally, with some flirting at work, but she insisted they only had closeness once. While not going into every single detail the other betrayed spouse showed, she revealed the emotional affair. She didn't say anything I didn't already know, but it was like a fresh wound opened up. After hearing her confirm it, I was left in silence again, like how I was on D-Day. She asked me to please tell her what I was thinking. I asked her why she would do this, knowing my family's history. Was she unhappy in any way? She broke down crying, saying she has never been unhappy with me or our marriage, that she loves me, and our relationship is the most important thing to her. I said her actions speak louder. She said she doesn't know why she got involved in the affair, but never wanted to hurt me, and it damaging her that by the time they had closeness, she made so many mistakes and realized she was in too deep and didn't know how to pull herself out, especially when the affair partner had championed for her at work. She told me the affair was no failure on my part. It's all on her. I asked if she felt forced by the affair partner, to which she said everyone loved him, and there was a boys' club mentality, and she froze up during closeness. She kept saying sorry, and if she could take it all back, she would. My emotions were slipping, so I tried to speed it along and asked why she would have closeness with me, which she initiated. She only said she felt so disgusted and guilty that she wanted to wash it away by being with me again. I told her she didn't wash anything away. All she did was endanger me to ease her conscience. She didn't have a response. She only kept crying. I then questioned her if she ever intended to tell me. She admitted she wanted to confess but was afraid because she knew that cheating was a deal breaker for me. Her plan was to fix it by ending the affair and cutting off communication with the affair partner outside of work. She claimed she stopped texting him after they had closeness. I inquired if the affair partner wore a contraceptive, and she disclosed that closeness wasn't planned. Because she froze up, she didn't mention protection to the affair partner. She expressed deep remorse, acknowledging that she'll never forgive herself and understands my right to feel hatred. The pain she caused me and the no-contact period have deeply scared her. She pleaded with me to give our marriage another chance, but I compared her to my dad, and that hurt her deeply. Although she insisted she was nothing like him, I questioned the difference. When she tried to take my hand, I pulled away. She argued that our situation is different from my parents and begged me to believe we can overcome this given everything we've been through. I couldn't bring myself to say that. I then requested a timeline, which seemed to terrify her, but I insisted, and she agreed. I emphasized the need for both of us to get tested, and she agreed without hesitation. Struggling to keep my emotions in check, I packed a bag and some essentials. She pleaded for me to stay, willing to sleep on the couch, but I couldn't remain in the same house with her. She professed her love and apologized for everything, but I couldn't respond. When she asked where I was staying, I admitted it was with my mom. She wanted me to convey a message to my mom, but I declined, stating I couldn't be the go-between. I sensed her concern about her relationship with my mom, as she had treated her like a daughter. Despite her request for a hug, I refused and left. Now I'm assessing my options. While she revealed more truth, the reality remains unchanged. I'm uncertain about her claim that she froze up. I'm also hesitant to share the affair with others due to embarrassment. Currently, I'm taking it day by day and would appreciate any advice on how to proceed. The idea of freezing up seems unlikely to me. She still went through with it, and truthfully, they might have had closeness more than once. Doing so without protection feels uncomfortably bosom for a casual encounter. Am I mistaken? Update. I got the timeline from my wife, detailing her affair with her coworker. I've been maintaining casual contact with her. She texted about heading to a post-suspension meeting, and an hour later, she informed me of her termination. We discussed the STD test scheduled for Thursday. Last night, she FaceTimed me, and although I was hesitant to answer, she still looked the same as on Sunday. She mentioned finishing the timeline, and I told her I'd come over tomorrow. She expressed that writing the timeline was one of the hardest things she had done, second only to our current separation. She was trying not to cry, and although I would normally comfort her, I couldn't. My mom offered to accompany us for support. She wouldn't enter the house, just wait in the car, likely concerned about my drive back. I accepted her offer and drove us. My wife was waiting for me inside with a 2-page document, visibly anxious. I sat by her on the couch. It felt like D-Day all over again. I wanted her to read the timeline, and although she was taken aback, fear was evident on her face. We were usually so attuned, and her fear heightened my dread. I said I needed her to do this for me, and after a moment she did. It was crushing on D-Day when talking to other betrayed spouses, when she admitted the emotional affair, and it still was. The timeline covered from my wife being hired through D-Day, detailing how her friendship with her affair partner began. The workplace culture and how the affair partner presented himself were different. He joked with the guys, but didn't go along with nonsense, keeping his department intact. Their friendship grew, and he started venting about his home life, with her as a listening ear. He probed about her life. She told him about her mom relapsing, and as he grew bolder, she wished she'd spoken up, but was blinded by the view of him being one of the good ones at work. Co-workers mocked her for being his favorite. She didn't confide in me because I was dealing with my dad at the time, and she felt her problems were minor, so she vented to the affair partner. This began the emotional affair, and now he knew about issues I wasn't aware of. It hurt to hear because we always kept open communication. There was nothing we couldn't talk about, no matter what was going on. She was my first priority, and I would have been there for her. We were a team, a pair. The affair partner started flirting at work, exchanging texts, and she reciprocated. He hinted at a promotion for her. After the promotion, he hugged her, their first physical contact, joking that she could thank him later. During a team outing, they broke off, and he vented about other betrayed spouses and his kids. They went to his room under the pretense of celebrating her promotion. He turned on music, talked about the view, pulled her close, and started dancing. He kept saying how pretty she was. Eventually, he kissed her, and she froze up. Emotions weren't there. The affair partner groped her, and it led to closeness. She didn't peek, and he finished quickly, saying it was a hell of a celebration. She fell asleep, quietly left to her room, went into the shower, and scrubbed her body repeatedly, but still felt filthy. She didn't sleep and cried, thinking of me. The next morning, there was only one meeting, but she didn't go. The affair partner called, expressing disappointment, and suggested staying another day. She was barely replying, lied about being hungover, and he offered to cover for her at the meeting. He tossed the idea of them staying behind another day. She was afraid to tell me about what happened because she knew how cheating was a deal-breaker for me. She devised a plan to end the affair by limiting communication with her coworker to work-related matters. Returning home early, she was overwhelmed with guilt when we reunited, but she pretended that everything was normal. On Saturday morning, she initiated closeness in an attempt to erase her actions, but the regret intensified as she had been with her coworker without protection. On Monday, her coworker pulled her aside, and she suggested leaving the past behind as a mistake, but he resisted until another employee intervened. After the confrontation, she called her sister in a state of panic. My sister-in-law found out the same day I did. While there's more to the timeline, I condensed it as I read. She cried and took brief breaks to catch her breath. I wasn't holding up well either. Despite her repeated apologies and attempts to touch my hand, I withdrew from her. Needing to leave, I requested the timeline and departed. Inside my car, I broke down, and my mom, without saying a word, embraced me. I sat there crying in her arms like a little kid again. In no condition to drive, my mom drove us back. My wayward wife kept calling and texting, bombarding my mom's phone, but I assured my mom that I would handle it. When I eventually called back, she asked if I was okay, and I questioned why in the world I would be okay. She admitted I was right and apologized, acknowledging she was no better than my dad. She saw the timeline as a confrontation with herself, gaining clarity. She professed her love for me, emphasizing our journey from friends to best friends, and cherishing every moment with me. She regretted her choices at work, acknowledging they were minor compared to the pain I and other betrayed spouses experienced. She hated herself for potentially losing me and asked if I could find it within me to reconcile. She promised to spend forever showing me what our relationship means to her and to put in the work to make things right again. I couldn't respond, my right hand shaking. I only stated that I needed some space. Do I regret hearing the timeline? Not really, because I needed to know. Sometimes decision-making is challenging for me, and I might scrutinize it, but once made, I strive to stick to it. That's always been my way. I have always loved my wayward wife. We have been through a lot together, and I don't want to lose our relationship. However, I still feel broken when I think about what has happened. Individual counseling seems beneficial, as I did it for a year after my dad's affair. I also plan to pursue a polygraph and insist on a pregnancy test. Any thoughts or advice on this situation would be appreciated. Update: I found out more details after my wife shared the timeline of her affair with her coworker. Since she read her timeline, there hasn't been a peaceful moment. It hasn't been weighing heavily on me, and I still haven't slept well. I've been reading the timeline at least once every day, and with each reread, I go through a range of emotions: sadness, hurt, anger, and embarrassment. Sometimes I can't even express my feelings in words. I don't believe she was lying or altering the details. Everything aligns with what another betrayed spouse showed me. I think the timeline had a significant impact on her. While the affair is what it is, I do believe the affair partner targeted her. I'm upset that I was unaware and couldn't protect her. When we were 17, there was a troubling incident with her mom, and she sought comfort at my house. I promised to always protect her. I feel like I failed with the affair partner, not seeing his motives and relying solely on her word. On Friday night, I texted another betrayed spouse to see if we could talk. I wanted her input and to check on how she and the twins were doing. She called. Just after putting her kids to bed, she shared the challenges and her focus on the kids. She mentioned a bitter divorce in progress. The affair partner acts like the wronged party, puffing himself up. He hasn't apologized and is living at an extended stay. She changed the locks to keep him out. I inquired about the affair partner's history, past cheating, misplay of power. She understood my concern, suspecting past infidelities without proof. She mentioned an allegation 5 years ago at his previous job, reported to HR for retaliation. Nothing came of it, and the woman was viewed negatively. She ignored the signs because she was pregnant. There wasn't another allegation, and he had a great reputation. It took me a moment to process this information. I asked if he gave her a timeline, but she wasn't interested, wanting a divorce. She suggested her attorney for a consultation when I'm ready. I took the info and thanked her. We talked briefly about life post-D-Day before ending the call. I felt more anger toward the affair partner. I believe he targeted my wayward wife, but she still had an emotional affair that grew, and I just feel deeply hurt, lost, and betrayed. I really hate all of this. Yesterday, I couldn't shake off what the other betrayed spouse said. My sister-in-law called, sounding troubled. She was worried about my wayward wife, believing she wasn't doing well and hadn't been eating. She asked if I had talked to her, but I hadn't since Thursday. My wayward wife has been respecting my request for some space. I didn't like hearing this at all. The thought of my wayward wife going through this and the days without contact or seeing her have been really tough. She asked if I could talk to her, but I had already decided to visit her. On the way, I stopped at a local restaurant she likes and ordered her usual meal to go. I went straight to our home without telling her beforehand. Part of me wondered if the affair partner might be there this time, but his car wasn't around. I found my wayward wife on the couch, looking like she was going through hell. Conflicting emotions hit me. Her choices brought this on, but I also wanted to comfort her. She sat up, surprised to see me. She moved to get up, probably to hug me, but she stopped herself. I showed her the food, telling her I needed her to eat. This caught her off guard, and she said I didn't have to, but I insisted. I helped her settle at the table, got her a drink, and she started eating. I asked about the affair partner, if he's been to the house. She said no. I asked to see her phone, and she handed it over without hesitation. While she ate, I checked her phone, but there were no new messages with the affair partner, and his number was still blocked. After she finished eating, I mentioned her sister's call, which surprised her. She promised she didn't ask her to do that, and respected my space request, but I said it was okay. I wasn't bothered by the call. She said I shouldn't have to rush home, but I insisted our vows matter. She started tearing up, saying she ruined us, hurt me, and betrayed me. She admitted she's angry and disappointed in herself. At this point, her words hit me deeply, and I broke down. She kept saying she didn't deserve me and tore herself apart. She said she must regret being with her, and I cut in, saying my whole life was wrecked. But I didn't regret her. I reminded her of our history, the time she saved me, and how I never wanted to be apart from her. Before D-Day, we just cried without saying another word. I told her I needed to go, and as I left, she thanked me, understanding my need for space. She's not giving up on us and plans to start individual counseling. I nodded. My first counseling session is scheduled for Monday, but I still don't know how to proceed or feel any less lost. Every imaginable emotion is wrecking me, and I feel trapped in a maze.